everybody. Like Nancy said, this is just a wonderful group of women, and I can't wait to introduce you to all of them. And I'm so excited to hear their case studies and to share their case studies with you, and to share a little bit more with you about the mom blogger community and what it is and what it means. I'm also really excited because my parents are here. This is the iMoms Summit, and my mom is here, and my dad. Wave, everybody. They live in Florida, and when they heard that I was speaking here, they wanted to come and see me present because they don't get to see it very often. So, Mom and Dad, I hope I do you justice. So, I just wanted to set the stage here for you with a few bits of information from the report that I wrote on the mom blogger community. And it's called A Marketing Powerhouse. And once you hear these four women speak, you will understand why. Let's see. Forward. There we go. So there's three key points that I wanted to stress for you regarding the mom blogger community. First of all, it's a lot bigger than you probably think it is. We are forecasting that there are 3.9 million moms in the US who are bloggers. And they blog about a lot of different topics, not just being a mom. And you'll hear that with some of the women who are going to come up in just a little while. They talk about travel, technology, automobiles, and they do talk about parenting as well. But any mom who blogs about any topic, that's what we include in our forecast. And there's 3.9 million of them out there in the US. Now, if you look at the other side of it, who is reading blogs? Over half of online moms are reading blogs in the US. And they're actually more likely than internet users as a whole to be blog readers. So remember that when you're working with marketing partners and working with blogs, you're reaching a mom audience quite substantially. And the last key point I wanted to make is Facebook and Twitter. I mean, these add reach. I mean, you can't just look at blogs as being just one thing and separate from Facebook and Twitter. Moms who blog are among the most savvy users of Facebook and Twitter to promote and to help you promote. And moms who read blogs are also very active on Facebook and Twitter as well. So let's dive into the data for just briefly. This is from my forecast. We, like I mentioned, 3.9 million moms in the US are bloggers writing about any topic. That's women who have children under 18 in their household. And we're forecasting that'll rise to about 4.4 million by 2014. So definitely still a growing market. Now, what that amounts to is nearly 1 in 8 online moms who are bloggers writing about any topic. And that's a pretty big audience. And again, probably not as large as you might have expected. Or excuse me, probably larger than you might have expected. Looking at the mom audience who reads blogs, 54% of online moms are blog readers. And we forecasted that to rise to 63% by 2014. Now you're probably wondering, and you're going to hear a lot more from these women in just a moment, what are some best practices for reaching moms and working with moms who blog? I just wanted to share a few things with you. You'll hear a lot more from the four women in just a moment. First of all, the biggest thing I would say is you need to know your audience. You need to understand that not all moms who blog about parenting, and understand who you're reaching when you're working with a mom blogger and who their audience is. Maximizing your reach. Don't just look at blogs as being just one thing. Maximize the reach of your marketing by using other social media, such as Facebook and Twitter, to expand and focus your presence. The FTC rules. These are rules that govern how bloggers and marketers interact and what sorts of disclosures bloggers and marketers are required to make. Marketers are the ones who are held responsible. You're probably already aware of that. It's not necessarily the bloggers. Your marketers are the responsible ones, and you need to make sure that the bloggers that you work with are working ethically and are making the correct disclosures at the correct times about the kinds of things that they do, whether it's reviewing your products or running a contest for you. You have to make sure that they're working in a very ethical manner. Just a couple more things. Participation is paramount. You might be tempted to blast out 100 of something that you're trying to get into the marketplace and reviewed, and not really pay attention to who you're reaching and just hope and pray that maybe 10 of them might want to review your product. But if you actually take the time to understand the people, the bloggers that you're working with, you'll have a much better chance of success. I mean, you know, these are people too, and they really appreciate the personal relationship and the time that it might take for you to create that personal relationship with them. It's going to help your brand. Towards that goal, making it easy. Send them all the information that they need to successfully run a campaign or contest or review something for you. I heard a really funny story when I was doing my report last fall. I was talking with a woman, a marketer, and she was telling me about a friend of hers who was a blogger. And the friend received one day in the mail a slipper, a single slipper, from a very expensive slipper company with a request, would you please review my product? And she looked down and she said, well, how am I supposed to review a single slipper? So the moral of the story here is send both slippers. The last thing I'll say, track your interactions. I mean, social media measurement, we could spend all day talking about that, but you know, you can track the success of your blogger outreach efforts in a lot of different ways, through the number of comments you receive, the number of reviews, pass-alongs, brand sentiment, search results. I mean, a lot of times marketers look for how high up their reviews get placed in search results, and many bloggers do a really good job of SEO and get their blog posts very high up, and so that's a great way to know how effective your marketing is. So that's just a little bit of highlights. If you're interested, this is based on a report from eMarketer that's out last year. It's available for sale. This is just a look at some of the other things that I've covered over the past few months. eMarketer is a digital information service specializing in digital marketing and media, and I look forward to hearing more from our bloggers. So I think I'm going to invite up, let's see, Lindsay, you're first, right? So Lindsay she runs a blog called Rock and Roll Mama. It's chronicling her life as the wife of someone who's in a rock band. And she's going to give us a case study and information about work that she's done with Guilt Group. So go ahead, Lindsay.
Hi. All right, so yeah, my name is Lindsay Maines, and my website is called rockandrollmama.com. And it's not because I'm an aging groupie who's refusing to grow up, but because I do have a husband who tours 6 to 9 months internationally. So I spend a lot more time backstage at Bonnaroo than I do at Gymboree. And that's just my life, and it makes me a little bit of an outlier in the mom market as far as taste and presentation, but it also makes me a really great indicator of marketing outside the domestic sphere, because moms still do think about books and music and clothes and all of these things that, as many purchasing decisions as we do make around the home, we make so many others that are also influenced by our affinities before we became moms that don't change. They change somewhat. You can't buy Prada every time, but maybe you still want to buy some Prada. And that's where companies like the Guilt Group come in, which is a flash sales site founded in 2007 by 2 women who are now moms. They weren't then. And it's grown now to over 2 million users, and I think it's going to pass 500 million of revenue this year. So they approached me as somebody who could help them put together a board of moms who have influence in different spheres and could be almost more back-end influencers than front-end. We do some work with amplification, but it's almost preventing the wrong messaging, which I think is a great thing about working with moms that brands don't always think about first. But something else I do is I work with One, Bono's global advocacy group, and they said, we wanted to talk to you because you seem very sensitive to condescension. And I was like, I totally am. I'm your girl. Let's do it. So let's see. So Guilt Group, we covered that. What do we do? There's 10 people. We meet with leadership, with the founders, Alexa and Alexis, and with Susan Line, chairman and person of the board. We give feedback on either different sourcing ideas or just the lateral layout of the site. I hate this. I don't want to click through 10 times. Get rid of this, blah, blah, blah. Because if you are talking to people with the least amount of time to spend with your media, you're really optimizing your marketing across different demographics across the board. Because nobody has enough time to click through 10 different things. So that's some of the back-end things that we do. We also host Facebook chats, do giveaways on our sites, and curate sales. Now, when I say curate sales, this is what was most interesting to me about this project. So they wanted to work with moms because 70% of the Guilt users are women. They drive 74% of the revenue. But here's the funny part. They index really high with households with no kids whatsoever. But 36% of Guilt users do have kids 0 to 17. But why would you go after a small segment of your market when you already have a pretty big user base? And the answer is because we're exponential purchasers. So if you have a place where people can buy travel and lifestyle goods and home goods and things for your children, and you have one person that you know is the gateway to all of those purchases, why not optimize the experience for them? So that's where we came into play. I hit the wrong button. And why would we be better for social? Deborah did a great job talking about how women are all over Facebook and they're all over Twitter. But why is that? I mean, you guys, you're on Facebook and you play fantasy football on some site that I don't understand. I mean, you do things online too. But the answer is in some really neat research from Dr. A.K. Pradeep, who he wrote by marketing, I have to look at the name of it, The Buying Brain, thank you. So, and it's about how our neurological stimuli influence, of course, all our purchasing decisions, and how female brains actually have 4 times more neuron connectors to the left and right hemispheres. So we're just naturally a lot more receptive to emotional and social messaging. And we like cooperative messaging and reciprocal messaging and brands talking back to us and talking back to brands and feeling heard and all that kind of stuff. So look at this languaging. Busy moms, take note. We're announcing an amazing new sanity-saving initiative we think you're going to love. This Thursday, April 7th, our official Guilty Mom sale, because we are guilty, right? Goes live at noon. You won't want to miss out. The big idea, we searched far and wide for the kind of smart, stylish moms that inspire everyone around them with their limitless joy to vivre. They're very kind. And now we're giving them a chance to share their style with the world. Our goal is to celebrate these amazing women and provide you expertly vetted pits that we help create a leaner, meaner shopping experience for all our overextended moms. So look at that language at the end. That's that empathetic language, that we're in this together. We're creating an experience that acknowledges that you have different goals going into the shopping experience and that you're meeting multiple needs by doing so. And then you've got big old face, right, front and center. You could say, first of all, I get maybe like my mom, and some people know who I am on the internet, not internet famous, but having a face right there has value because it's the mirror neuron effect of people see faces and they automatically feel more familiar with the product. So associating a real mom face with this brand and with these products lets other moms look and see, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. This is a mom thing. This has already been vetted and approved. For example, this is one of the items that was in the sale, which I curated. So I chose like 15. It was from Tea Collection, who I love. And we put them on the site, and they actually wrote, curated by Lindsay Maines across the bottom with that picture at the top. So moms could look and see, oh, here's one of our own who has picked these things first and is making my job easier. And the curated portion of the sale did sell out within 2 hours. And the whole sale sold out within, I think, 2 days of going live. That's not abnormal for Guilt at all. I can't take credit for that. And we're only 6 months into this year-long experiment, so it's really too early for me to give data on if that was or was not an absolute, cause and effect kind of thing. But did it hurt? I don't think it hurt. And I think that just experimenting with that kind of like face-to-face connection and peer-to-peer marketing is only going to help your micro-targeting efforts, whether it's from an internal, take this feedback before you take it to scale, or an external, these people help you amplify your message way. So, and another resource that you have access to without even doing blogger outreach is the moms in your own organization. This is a sale that's live on Guilt until May 5th. It's the moms who are there, who work there. They picked some things. They threw them up on the web. I bought 2 last night. Billy Joel collection and a toolkit that's stripy and beautiful. I already have one with flowers, but what the heck. So I was laughing at myself because I totally viscerally reacted to it. Like, oh, look, they picked it. Even though I know what we're doing, I still reacted to it. And so I think that as moms, for a long time, it's been sort of unacceptable for us to put on our mom hat and say in a meeting, I think this, that, because this is what I do at home. But I would encourage you as marketers, at this point in the game, that adds value to you as an employee. It doesn't detract from it, the fact that you're a mom, if you are. So we're just exploring the female network effect, which Sheryl Sandberg talks about how women are not only the majority of its users, but drive 61% in terms of messages, updates, and comments. That's a lot. 73% of all fan activity on Facebook is women, and on average, they have 8% more friends than men. No offense, you guys. And in conclusion, there's a great article on TechCrunch that I would encourage you to read, where Aileen Lee says, "What would you change to make your product and service more attractive to female customers? Do you do enough product and user interface with female users? Have you figured out how to truly unleash the shopping and social power of women?" And I think that there's a lot more interesting work to be done in that arena. Thank you.
Okay, so next we have Amy Leupold-Bear. Amy owns Resourceful Mommy Media and runs the Resourceful Mommy blog, but she's actually possibly maybe better known or going to be better known soon for the Twitter parties that she runs, and she's going to tell you a little bit about that. Take it away.
So there are obviously many ways that brands and agencies can work with bloggers, but I want to just talk a little bit about event hosting because it's something that I've done a lot personally, and so I can speak to it the best. And just briefly, as Deborah said, I'm from Resourceful Mommy Media, and that mainly includes resourcefulmommy.com, which is my personal blog, which is mainly a parenting site, and then also the Global Influence Network, which is my network of about 1,500 bloggers, mostly parenting bloggers, some non-parents, some dad bloggers. So marketing event partnerships, just some examples to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. It could be online events and offline events. Online would be Twitter parties, Facebook chats, forum discussions, webinars. These are all ways that I've personally partnered with brands. And then offline events, meet and greets, focus groups, partnering with bloggers at conferences to host your events is also a great way to reach out and have that brand partnership. And the reasons why the blogger would want to partner with a brand on an event like this, why the audience would be interested in that, and then what the brands would get out of that experience. For the bloggers, obviously this could be an opportunity for monetary compensation. Certainly a lot of bloggers participate in earned media opportunities, but we are businesswomen and we like the monetary compensation as well. So this is a great way to utilize the skills that the blogger has built up and partner in a way where they can receive that compensation. It also elevates them as an expert in the community. It gives them an experience on a PR or marketing team. You don't need to just bring them in at the end and say, okay, now host this event. You can bring them in, as Lindsay was speaking to, on the back end and consult. And it's a great opportunity for that blogger to gain that experience. And also cross-promotion opportunities. Again, like Lindsay showed, with her face and her blog on that site, that elevates her in a different way from maybe the elevation for her personal platform that she's getting across social media or in other channels. And then the audience. Why would a blogger's audience want that blogger to be partnering with a brand on an event? It gives them an opportunity to engage with a brand in a way that they might not otherwise have. It provides interesting content on that blog that they're already reading. Also, giveaways are huge. I'm sure everybody in the room knows that, but around particular events, it's just another opportunity to sponsor those giveaways. You can also form a community around those particular events, and that's something that's beneficial to the audience. And they can form a long-term relationship with the brand. I know a lot of people that attend my online events, they continue to talk with those brands moving forward, and that's an experience that they might not otherwise have. And then also special deals, incentives. If they're part of that community, that blogger, and that blogger partners with a brand that they love, it might give them just special incentives that they would not otherwise receive. And then for the brands, it's an authentic connection. You're not going at that audience with no introduction. There's somebody who's already a trusted resource that's saying, hey, you know, this is a brand that I'm partnering with. You already come to my site daily. You already trust me. And I think that you'd like to, you know, hear about what they've got to offer. And also, working with a blogger on an online or an offline event, it offers you a partner within the community that you're trying to reach, and also interaction with the marketing audience. and a path to future interaction. You never know what's going to come out of that. So if you partner with a blogger, say for a sponsored event at a conference, perhaps they're going to introduce you to your next lead to try to get to another segment of the audience that you're trying to reach. And then exposure across social media. As Deborah said, bloggers are not just blogging. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're utilizing these social media tools very successfully. And so if you partner with a brand, or with a blogger rather, who's already there, it can be your pathway for that brand to also gain that social media access. So my case study is about Twitter parties. I invented the Twitter party in 2008 to promote my own blog, and it very quickly turned into something that I did for other companies, and we've now done close to 400 Twitter parties for a number of brands, as you can imagine, with 400 parties. It's a viral marketing concept because it works off of the premise of both the retweet and also the peripheral audience. So according to Clout, my personal Twitter account has been retweeted over 50,000 times, and I would say the majority of those retweets happen during Twitter parties. So if I'm putting a message out about your brand to my 27,000 followers, and that's retweeted, it just continues like ripples across the water. And that's a unique experience to any other platform, because the retweet option allows your message to just continue on and on. And then the exposure to the peripheral audience, it can occur a number of ways. A participant's followers. So say, Liz is participating in one of my Twitter parties. Her followers, by nature of the fact that she's tweeting, are now suddenly participating as well. The hashtag list is another way that you reach a peripheral audience, because people don't necessarily know that there's an online event occurring, but they might check what are the trending hashtags. They'll go to a variety of sites, and then they can follow the event that they otherwise would not have known about. And then the trending topics list, and the example I gave here is an event that we did for the Hershey Corporation. And Hershey's was a trend that night, and it was a worldwide trend. So that was something that brought in more participants to the event without having to do any sort of marketing or outreach. They simply saw it on the trending topics board, and they knew that they could join the event. And then a little bit of information about who you might reach through this type of event. We did a number of participant surveys with the people who generally attend the events, in this case, again, Twitter parties. And they were, by and large, female participants. And although we do definitely have a non-parent group that participates, again, by and large, it's moms who are participating in these online events. And then we asked them, have you ever purchased a product you learned about at a Twitter party? And 84% said that yes, they absolutely have gone from participating in that event with that blogger to then making the purchase. And again, talking about the giveaway component, we asked, have you ever purchased a product that you won at a Twitter party? And again, 64% said that yes, after I had this product, I wanted another. Maybe I purchased it as a gift. Maybe it was a consumable item, and I went and purchased it again. One of the events that we hosted was for Select Comfort for their Sleep Number beds. And what we found was, first of all, just the volume of engagement. There were over 10,000 tweets in 1 hour from nearly 300 participants. And what that yielded for them was an increase in online impressions. And I just want to point out CPM of 36 cents. This partnering opportunity was a very economical way for them to gain the traffic across various social media channels and back to their own site for their newsletter list building. And then they also tracked the improved online tonality. They actually had a 400% improvement in brand reputation online after the event. It increased their social media infrastructure because, again, to participate in this event with the blogger, in this case myself, and with the brand, they needed to follow and like these accounts. And then generating sales. Now, again, this was part of an overall campaign that we did. We were driving participants back to their newsletter sign up and also to their Facebook page, but together, that component with the Twitter event generated $35,000 in sales. And then it also increases the brand's influence in the space. So if you're participating in an event on Twitter, it actually increases your influence on Twitter as tracked by Clout. So this was a party that we did for MoMA, which was recently acquired by Lancinol. And you can see our event was right before that spike, and it didn't drop back down, which I think is important to note. It continued to grow because the engagement increased in a rapid way and then continued to build. Because like I said, the audience that participates in events such as this, they want to continue that engagement with that brand. They come partly to engage with the community, the other participants, partly to engage with the blogger or the host, and partly to engage with the brand long term. So that continues to grow after an event such as this. So just to recap, in event partnership results, it's improved engagement, perception, sales, and influence for that brand. And so it's something that I would recommend as a blogger who does a variety of different things with brands and with agencies. It's a great way to give to that blogger's audience, to the blogger, and also to your brand.
Next up, we have Mighty Girl, Maggie Mason. Maggie runs Mighty Girl, and she's been doing it since 2000, so she's been a blogger for a really long time. The other thing that's really interesting is that she's pioneered the shopping blog space with Mighty Goods, which was named one of Time Magazine's 50 Cool Sites of the Year. So, welcome, Maggie.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? So we're just going to do a quick walkthrough of something that has been, this is not my first slide, something that has been sort of at the centerpiece of what I'm doing online right now in terms of campaigns. I call it my life list. About 3 years ago, I made what you call a bucket list, or just a list of things you want to do before you die, hopefully in your sleep in extreme old age. So I made this list, in part because I was working with Federated Media at the time, and I had a lot of corporations approaching me with messaging that they wanted to do, that I was having a hard time, or let's just say I was doing a lot of pitches. I was doing a lot of how does toilet paper fit into my day-to-day life, and amusing anecdotes around it, or things like that. So I wanted to have a feature on the site that I felt like I could fit in messaging around a personal narrative that was memorable. So I created this list, and I started doing some of the things on the list. I took my little boy to have his first ice cream cone. I started tasting 1,000 fruits. That thing in the middle is a kiwi berry. They're like the size of grapes. They're delicious. And then I went to the Black and White Ball in San Francisco and things like that. I asked Federated to start pitching this, and a lot of the salespeople had the same reaction some of you are probably having, which is, how strange, a blogger wants a free trip to Greece. What a surprise. A blogger wants a cross-country road trip paid for. So a lot of people were sort of like, nah, that sounds like an awesome idea, but it's not what I'm into pitching. But there was one young man there named Jason Ratner who does a lot of close work with Intel. And at the time, Intel was doing its Sponsors of Tomorrow campaign that had the robot dancing and the humorous ads. And he pitched to David Vinesky, who also liked the idea. It was in the scope of what they were trying to do in terms of more innovative campaigns, things that had an element of wonder. And so my author rep, Paige Thomas, and Jason sort of structured the deal, presented it to Intel, and we started negotiations on it. So what Intel said to me is, we have this chunk of money. You can have it. Tell us what you can do for it. So I put together 3 or 4 pitches of here's what I can do in a given timeline. I was over-ambitious. We'll talk a little bit more about this slide in a minute. But we put together 3 sort of angles that we could take on it, and Intel chose one. And then we started the more minor negotiations around issues of trust, which I'm sure many of you have experienced with your clients. You have a large company with a particular brand and a particular message that they want to put out. They're used to engaging with hired hands who are professionals in their space and have a certain set of expectations, and there are ramifications for their career if they don't deliver in a particular way. At the time in this space, these relationships with bloggers were really still forming. It was very Wild West. It still is very Wild West. But as you can imagine, a brand as big as Intel had a lot of trust issues around, you're just going to be publishing all this stuff on your internet website, and we don't get text approval. We have, our logo next to it. Do we have our logo next to it? Can we put our logo next to it? All those things. So Federated helped facilitate some of those things. We ended up not having any insistence on logos in the main content bar. They did advertising around the content. And about a week before the campaign went to launch, there was some freakouts happening. FM was very good with handling them, but I was going to Greece with some friends, and there was a lot of checking up on the friends and the friends of friends Twitter feeds, and if anybody said something blue, there was talk about it. Is this a person we should really be associating with? So there was a lot of handling that relationship in the beginning before we really got started. One of the reasons there was a built-in trust there is because I have a background as a copywriter. I had done a lot of work with Intel before through their Life Scoop campaign, and Federated was a very good mediator in that process for us. Jason Ratner actually is a close friend of David Vinesky's, been to his wedding and was vouching for me and saying, this is going to turn out okay, everything's going to be okay. By the end of the campaign, we had such a good relationship and partnership. I knew a lot of the people who were working on the campaign. I felt like a member of their team with things. And eventually we got to the point where we had snafus. This is an example. One of the things that I agreed to do was parasailing, which is very different than paragliding. Parasailing is like a carnival ride. Wikipedia actually says this. Parasailing is it just lifts you up into the air like a carnival ride. Paragliding, they strap a faux helicopter backpack to your back and you jump off a cliff. So I had gotten, it was not parasailing season, but it was part of this contract, and I signed this contract, and I was trying to get it done. And so we went down to LA to do this, and when I arrived, I was like, this is not my jam at all. How do I write this up in a way that's I'm not gonna jump off a cliff. I'm sorry, I did sign that piece of paper, and I would like to be alive to complete the rest of the campaign. So I ended up just saying to the client, how do I approach this? I'm not doing this, and there's no way for me to parasail unless I go to another country at this point. And so because we had that trust relationship, even elements of the campaign that didn't go according to plan, we were sort of able to work through those in a friendly way that was very fruitful for both of us. So the actuality of the campaign, the things that we agreed on, I learned to roll in a kayak. I went to Greece, I ziplined. I went to Puerto Rico to swim with bioluminescent plankton. I did a site redesign, which we launched with a tap dance routine, because take tap dancing lessons was one of the things on my life list. Had dinner at the French Laundry. Scheduled a giant food fight with 50 or 60 people. We were wearing some Intel shirts. And got a little bit more action on my Taste 1,000 Fruits campaign. So as you can imagine, and this is something to keep in mind with bloggers when you do a content campaign, this is an extremely immersive experience. So it was difficult for me not to mention things that were involved in the campaign, because for 3 months, this was my life. This was everything that I was doing. So with everything that I was doing related to this, there was a little mention at the top of my post and at the bottom of my post that Intel was the one who was affording this much more interesting content than what otherwise would have been available for my readership, and me to live my dreams. And it forged a very close relationship between Intel and my readership. In fact, with the launch of the campaign, drew about over 200 comments, many of which were brand specific. People were really reacting to Intel as a corporation and its engagement with me, and by extension with them. The way that I presented the campaign was really how I felt. I felt that Intel was providing me an opportunity to make living my dreams my job. And there was a lot of gratitude in my community around that, and a lot of recognition that it was a really innovative risk for Intel to take. And that continued throughout the course of the campaign. Over the course of the campaign, we probably generated around 1,000 comments. And many of them were extremely positive and mentioned the brand. We also ended up having life list hashtags. People were doing their own life lists, so it sort of took off on Twitter. And I really believe this campaign is what has enabled me to make the life list sort of a central component of my offering online. So because of the trust that I built up with the folks at Intel, and they built up with my readership in allowing me the freedom to present this content the way that I thought was most appropriate to my readership, and being very hands-off with things, we've moved forward in partnership, And we are now like throwing little boutique events for them. We did a brunch, a women's brunch for them at South by Southwest. I have an event for women in media called Mighty Summit, and they sponsored the photography you can see with the middle component. And now I'm one of the advisors on their social media advisory board. So the lessons that I took away from this and that I think are applicable kind of across the board with these types of campaigns is that when you are doing things online, you can see the food fight here, look for things that have an element of wonder or a sense of humor, and look for people who you know to be professionals in this space, perhaps people who have a background in editing, copywriting, who have an understanding of the ways that you can interact with brands in a natural way that are still professional. And look at it as a partnership. This person is a peer, not a hired hand. Don't go into it with a list of demands. Go into it as a conversation. You know more about your space. They know more about their audience, and perhaps in many cases more about the ways people interact online. And finally, when possible, my dream would be to have 4 or 5 very close partnerships with brands that I trust, because there are people behind those brands that I trust. That should be the same way going back the other way. You find your people, and when they deliver for you, stick with them. Try to formulate campaigns around the things that interest their audience and see where you can fit together to form a reciprocal relationship. And that's it. Thanks.
Oh. Don't go anywhere yet, though. Did you jump off the cliff?
I did not jump off the cliff. I did a post about how I was terrified to jump off the cliff, and then all my readers were glad that I didn't die.
So. The mighty girl lives. All right. So our last presenter is Liz Gumbenners. By day, she's an ad agency creative director, but she's also probably better known online as the author of the Mom 101 blog and also the publisher and editor-in-chief of CoolMomPics.com. So welcome to Liz.
Hi, everybody. There's only like 20 more minutes till pool time, so just bear with us, okay? So let me just give you a quick backstory. I also come out of advertising like Maggie. And in 2006, my partner Kristen Chase and I started a blog, I kid you not, called CoolMomShit.com. And if you go to the Wayback Machine, it's still in there somewhere. And it was just our way of promoting cool stuff that we were seeing online that moms were doing. Now, this is 2006. As you heard, that was the Friendster era. There was certainly like no marketers reaching out to bloggers at that point, nobody giving us coupon codes or giveaways. It was just the stuff that we thought was cool. And it was really, we always had a heart for handmade items, boutique brands, small companies, corporate giving, eco stories, like just the stuff we think is cool. And as the site grew organically, we found that our readers were asking us more and more, well, what do you guys think is cool at the mall? Or what do you think is cool in this category? Or what great travel places should we go with our families? We realized we had an opportunity to start to build our site out and cover more kinds of things that we liked. Well, what happened last year was tech blew up. And we realized, first of all, our inbox was just getting filled with pitches for technology. And increasingly, moms, as you guys have been hearing all day, were using tech in crazy numbers, but they don't identify themselves as techies. So they didn't know where to go to get recommendations for the stuff that they were using. Apps, cameras, smartphones, anything to help make their lives simpler, cooler, more organized. They're not going to Mashable. They're not all that comfortable on CNET. And we thought, well, we can do that. So we started Cool Mom Tech as another place to provide mom-to-mom trusted recommendations on the stuff that we like, that we've tried out, that we thought was great. Now, we just started this in October. And in November, Best Buy came to us. And, usually, as you guys know, in the fourth quarter, you're not busy doing your fourth quarter media plans, right? Well, what happened was suddenly they were like, oh no, it's Christmas, it's November. And they had this last minute thing that they wanted to do. Well, the good thing about blogs is they're nimble. We can do something really quickly for them. And so they wanted to do kind of a big promotion. In particular, they wanted to brand themselves as Mom's Premier Holiday Helper. But there were all these new smartphones coming out in December as well. So they wanted to be able to talk about this huge new free smartphone promotion they were doing through all of November. That if you got a new contract at Best Buy, that then you could get like any free smartphone. It was crazy. It was amazing. And they knew they could do it with us for a whole lot less than buying commercials. So we put together a really comprehensive plan. As Deborah mentioned earlier, bloggers are not necessarily their blogs. They're kind of the sum of this whole digital footprint that we have. So we put together a really comprehensive plan as a way to like leverage both of our sites, our Twitter and our Facebook feeds, and other opportunities we had to help promote them. So what we did was why Cool Mom Tech? That's why. There were a couple reasons, actually, because you think they're a huge company. Why would they go to this kind of startup blog? Well, one, mom-to-mom recommendations, right? There's nothing like it. It's very authentic. Two, they know we're incredibly trusted in the space. And in fact, just last month, there was a award thing out called the Cribsy Awards. There were over 100,000 votes, and one of the categories was most trustworthy product reviews. And we won. We were honored that Cool Mom Picks won over Daily Candy, over AOL Parent Dish, over really big sites. So there's still something to be said for the blogger as being like a real person and not a corporation. They know that we're not a giveaway blog. There's some blogs that are all about giveaways, and they do great. But our readers are shoppers. They want to buy. In fact, they get mad when they can't buy something we wrote up. Just a couple days ago on Facebook, we had posted about the new Missoni Havaiana flip-flops, which, oh my God, they're so great. And they're like $60, and I need 10 of them. They're amazing. And we posted it, and soon after we posted, they were sold out. We can't take full credit for that. I'm sure a lot of other fashion blogs were covering them. But somebody on Facebook got really mad. Why would you post about it if it's sold out? And you know what? We love comments like that because people just want to buy what we're recommending. So I think they really like that. And then I think the last thing is that, we were just nimble. We could do it quickly, and we could put together something big for them, and it could be running the next day. The only thing that would slow us down was their legal department. So what we did was we put together something called the Cool Mom Tech Best Buy wish list. And we created a logo and identity so that people would know this was sponsored. It was a partnership. There was no doubt about who was sponsoring it. And what we wanted to do, Kristen, my partner, and I, we brainstormed. We're like, we don't do sponsored reviews. We don't want them to tell us to tell people, like, how great the Wii is. We already do that. So let's just put together wish lists. Like, if we had all the money in the world, here's what we would buy at Best Buy. And then to add to that, let's give away gift cards so that our readers can go buy the stuff themselves. So we did a series of 10 posts, including these wish list things, and just blew it out. And they never told us what to write about, which was so great. We knew we had categories we wanted to cover, so we would do like one on home computing, we would do one on gaming, one on smartphones, and at the very bottom of each post, we could put whatever information they wanted separate from our editorial content. But it was simply like, here's what we would do if we had $1 million. It was so much fun. And so if you look at the site, the first thing you see, Best Buy wish list, it's very clear it's sponsored. As everybody's mentioned, disclosure is hugely important, not just for you because you don't want the FTC all over you, but it's really important for our readers. We need them to continue trusting us, so we need to differentiate sponsored content from not sponsored content. But the best part is when you do something like this, people don't care that it's sponsored because it's so on brand for us and it adds so much value to our readers. So we have this Best Buy wish list. You'll see on the right, we also created a widget that would appear on both of our sites so that you could always see what was the most recent Best Buy post, so that it always had presence on our home pages. And it was just simply like a list of us like riffing on stuff, hey, we'd like this, or we'd like this new Xbox, or VTech is doing this awesome thing and we'd love to have it. And the cool thing is, a lot of them were products we were already talking about on our site anyway. So it was clear that it was just stuff that we loved. And then, we asked people to leave comments in order for a chance to win a $500 gift card from Best Buy, which is pretty awesome, especially around the holidays. And one of the things that we've been doing from the beginning, we started doing giveaways originally because we didn't want to keep the products. We felt like it just showed a lack of integrity, and we didn't want people to ever accuse us of writing about things to keep them. So we're like, well, let's just give it away at our own expense. And that's what we did. So the other thing that we do is when we have a contest, we'll ask people to go to the website to answer a question in order to qualify so that we know we're at least sending the traffic to the brands that are so generously donating the item. So the cool thing was people were leaving lots of links to the products that they wanted. So on one hand, it was like an additional mom-to-mom recommendation because every single post had like, here's what our readers would buy if they could. And people were clicking on those links to see what other moms were interested in. Two, it was like a focus group of thousands for Best Buy. They could literally look at that moment and go, wow, moms really want iPads. Or moms really want PlayStations more than they want Wiis. So they could see immediately, what our readers were interested in. Then you can see we put the widget also in the sidebar of Cool Mom Picks, which is kind of our main site. It has more traffic, so we wanted to make sure we were optimizing both sites as best as possible. Then the other thing is Kristen, my partner, did a bunch of Cool Mom Tech spokesperson videos. So she taped as their endorser 3 YouTube videos about everything from like gifts for families that we really like to even post-holiday shopping tips and how to get deals, and that stuff ran after Christmas. So they were hosted on our own site and they were hosted on YouTube. We also have an email list of about 35,000 people. So we do dedicated emails. So we could reach people. We have a whole different audience that only knows us through our emails and hardly even through our blog. So we could reach this whole other audience through emails. And then obviously there's the amplification of social media. We have now, I think, 106,000 Twitter followers at Cool Mom Pics. We have less on Cool Mom Tech. And then we've got about 16,000 Facebook fans. And as you heard from Amy, it really amplifies. So you tweet something and people tweet back. And the cool thing is they were authentic tweets. Tweeting us was never a requirement of entering anything. So every time we got a tweet or a Facebook comment, it was simply because people wanted to engage around the brand. And they wanted to talk about it, and they wanted to share the products they loved, and because they were genuinely excited about Best Buy. And it made them feel really good about a company. Just like Maggie had talked about, it made them go, wow, they're sponsoring a blog I love. I like that about them. We're very protective of each other in the mom blog community. And people notice what companies are out there working for bloggers, and it makes them look good to sponsor the stuff that you like. Just like if you like ESPN, like you feel good about the guys that sponsor your team, right? And on Facebook too, it just generated a lot of like really great discussion, and then people send that out to their networks as well. And it actually led to a morning show appearance, which was great. So as a spokesperson for it, Kristen ended up doing the CBS morning show on CBS Atlanta to talk about the free smartphone promotion. In terms of metrics, we ended up with 166 authentic retweets, which they tracked as reaching 2.6 million total users, and 504 authentic Facebook comments. Again, authentic because there was no requirement to do it in order to win something. It was simply that many people just wanted to talk about Best Buy. We ended up with over 3,000 blog comments, over 1,000 YouTube views, 2,300 track clicks to Best Buy, and then we ended up with 3.5 million total digital impressions, which is pretty great for somebody who was like, we need something done tomorrow. Can you get it done tomorrow? And again, a lot less money than buying a Super Bowl commercial. And I think the success of it, and I would imagine we all feel that this is what's successful, is this win-win-win formula. When we do anything with a sponsor, we want to make sure, first of all, it's got to be a win for the sponsor. We've got to figure out what it is they want to gain. What do they want out of it? Do they want engagement? Do they want clicks? Do they want, better impressions of themselves? Do they want sales? It's got to be a win for us, so it makes our site look good. We're very picky about who we partner with. We've sadly said no to a lot of money because a company might be like a big corporate polluter or something, and our readers would freak out. We have a very progressive, knowledgeable reader base. And then last, which is so important, is it's got to be a win for the audience. We are huge reader advocates. And if our readers don't feel like it made their lives more fun, more enjoyable, if there was something just exciting about the idea of possibly winning $500, or just the ability to connect around stuff they love, like all the chat back and forth about their favorite smartphones or their favorite Wii games, then we haven't done our job if we haven't given them more fun and joy in their lives. And that's it.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to invite all of these women up to the stage. We're going to do a quick Q&A. So I'll kick it off with the first question, and then I'll go to the audience, because I'm sure there are audience questions. Deborah, you started this presentation talking about the brand or the marketer who sent a mom blogger one slipper and wanted her to test it out. So clearly it don't. You guys, all the mom bloggers up there, thank you so much for demonstrating all the do's within your case studies. Can you, for the mom bloggers up there, speak to a don't, a line that you wouldn't cross?
Don't assume that moms are bored and sitting around and waiting for your pitch to come into their inbox. We are busy. Anybody here? I saw almost everybody raise their hand this morning that's a parent. We do a lot. Some of us not only are full-time parents and full-time bloggers, some of us also have full-time jobs. So I would say a big mistake that marketers make is thinking that we're just like waiting to fill our blogs with all of your messaging.
I really like it when people start a pitch with Dear Publisher or Dear Lindsay or anything except Mommy. Because only my kids really technically should call me that.
I feel like mommy in a professional space is a co-opting of an affectionate term that should only be used between parent and child. There's an element of condescension just in that phrase that you just sort of come to accept. And I had been blogging for like 7 years before I gave birth, and suddenly I was a mommy blogger, which at the time was like cha-ching, because it was the only way to make money online. But it has gotten kind of weird where it's like, well, I'm really a lifestyle blogger, but I think condescension in general is a big don't. When you're formulating a pitch, and it's very easy to do. I mean, I think we sometimes do it to each other even, you know. When you think about moms as a whole, there's sort of this tendency to see I don't know, your own mother, like a typical soccer mom from maybe, you know, whatever. But I think if you think of sort of the most stylish, least mom-like person you know who has a child and then pitch to them, you're going to have a much better success rate than if you think of sort of the cultural uber mom and try to formulate a message that appeals to them with a lot of exclamation points and...
Actually, you know, a great story. There was a big brand a few years back that did a big kind of event with moms. And the takeaway was that it was a little condescending. And they were saying to the moms in the audience, we're going to teach you so much about our products, you're going to feel like you have a PhD in molecular biology. And one woman raises her hand, she goes, I do have a PhD in molecular biology.
Touche, touche. We have a question back here.
Well, a couple questions. My name is Jim Waters. I work for Digitas. First question you touched on a little bit, which is kind of like backlash if you kind of insert a brand in a condescending way into your blog. Or I just wonder like how much negative backlash you've had, like when you've tried to be a little bit too aggressive from a marketing standpoint, and if you felt like you've learned a lesson from trying to be too aggressive and you've kind of insulted your audience or you had negative feedback from your audience. And then the second question was just quick for Liz. How much of your tech discussion or recommendation is hardware versus like software?
I'll do that first because it's quick. We are all over the place. We are probably more software because everybody's like apps these days, and it's faster and easier to review apps than to review hardware because we don't just write, you know, Mashable is always going to beat us to the product news. We're not going to be the first to break like every new HP printer that comes out. We take our time to like get things, review them, we'll send them back, but we want to really tell people what we've tried, what we think is good. So by definition, there'll be like a little less hardware on our site because we can't review every item.
And I'll jump in with the marketing and the backlash and just say that that's an area that I've been, because I didn't come into this as a money-making thing. I came into blogging because I'd written a book, I wanted to sell the book, and I didn't even know there were mommy blogs, and I certainly didn't know you could make money off of one. So from the beginning, I was able to be very selective in who I did choose to partner with once we were sort of at the point that that was an issue. And I actually keep a portfolio of category exclusive people that I'm working with for a year. And I think that by doing that and keeping it very focused, very niche, it's both better for the brand and then better for me and my audience.
I would say in my experience, I haven't had any backlash about a particular brand or a campaign that I've done. But I did have a couple comments recently when I just went completely rogue on a post, and I was having a day, I don't know. And I actually had comments that said, oh, I love when it's completely unscripted. And I said, well, it's always unscripted. I'm not publishing somebody else's script. It's just I've gotten so used to writing blog posts that might sound a little bit like advertising copy. Yeah. It's just something that after, you know, a number of years, it comes naturally. So I think in that case, it sort of opened my eyes to go a little off the beaten path a little bit more often. Mm-hmm.
I handle the backlash question by not saying yes to people who I know my audience is going to have a negative reaction to. If I don't think that I can write a post in a way that it creates genuine interest and present your product as information instead of advertising, it probably doesn't belong in my content bar. Mm-hmm. That said, I did have some, I mean, there definitely were some people with the Intel campaign who were like, oh, I really would have liked to see you figure out how to get all this stuff done on your own, like pay for this on your own. There are, of course, two ways of looking at it. I really did feel like I figured out a way to pay for it on my own, right? This is what I do for a living. So there are going to be elements of that with anything, but the mom space is extremely status conscious, I would say. So when there's a perception, it is also very close-knit. When there's a perception that there's a group of people getting something that other people don't have access to, that can create some kind of natural burbling in the space, but on the whole, everybody's so familiar with one another that you kind of have to know the source. Usually the backlash comes from people whose whole persona is about backlash. In general, it's a very supportive community, particularly if you take care to sort of take down negative comments the way you paint graffiti off a wall.
And there are some bloggers who are known as like advertorial bloggers, and basically give them money, they'll do whatever you want, and their whole blogs are just like giant ads. Some of them are popular, some of them are not. Personally, I think that's going to go away. I'm not sure what the ROI for somebody is. I don't know what their audience gets from it, except maybe they'll win something. So there are some people like that. I don't think they're up here, though, today.
We have time for 2 more questions. Take it up in the front.
Quick question for you. You talked about some great promotions that you had with Intel and Best Buy. Can you add a little color in terms of what type of return that Best Buy and Intel received from your sponsorship of you traveling and also the other sponsorship that you did from the blogger?
They made millions of dollars.
Do you have a connection from your programs?
I have no idea. I mean, there's no way of knowing if someone like walked into a Best Buy to buy a computer because they saw it on our site. I mean, I don't know how you track that with like a print buy either, honestly. I mean, I think there's certain things that you can track well in terms of metrics online. You can look at, clicks, engagement. You can potentially do like a tracked coupon, but nothing like that was a part of our campaign.
And that measurement challenge is not unique to advertising digitally within the blogosphere.
Yeah. Our success metrics for the campaign weren't about conversion per se. They were about brand recognition. They wanted to get women in particular back to the place where they were looking for intel inside, particularly when they're buying computers for the household or hardware for kids going off to college. So they were all about sort of brand recognition, which I think went very well for them. And I don't have the numbers on that, but I do know that the people who did the buy, I've been tipsy with them and I've had a lot of comments from them that the campaign, in their opinion, was a bargain for what they were looking to get in return. And they are very particular about their metrics, but they're also very protective of them. Like, it's difficult for me to get access to those numbers oftentimes, honestly.
So I just wanted to jump in really quick and say I see a common thread between all of the successes that we're discussing are about marketing to women in a different way than we've traditionally thought of. Like Amy's is about social engagement online, a community experience around the Twitter. Liz's is around moms recommending different things than CPG, although that's great too, but also handmade goods and tech. And then Maggie's too is about a woman experiencing living her dreams, which is not something that's always associated with motherhood. I hate to say it, but we think of hanging up that hat when we become moms, and it's the opposite.
We have time for one last question in the back.
Hi, Jen Samples with Ladsboro. Going back to the metrics, I have a 2-part question. The first question is, how do you feel about brands providing you with unique tracking codes to insert into your blogs so that they can track the performance of your blog versus another blog? The second component of that is once they've identified that your subscribers are driving a significant amount of traffic to their sites via their analytics, how do you feel about receiving special products so that you can do giveaways to your fans and subscribers?
Well, for me, I mean, giving tracked comments, tracked links on sponsored content is nothing new. That's pretty much, that's how Best Buy tracks our stuff. Yeah, that's standard. They track the ad banners and they've got tracking codes only in sponsored links though. Editorially, if you're not paying us, you'll have to track your own stuff. As far as like being part of a program where we just get stuff, personally, I wouldn't do that because we look to scoop other blogs and we don't want to cover the same content that everybody else is doing. Like part of our readers come to us because they're going to find information first. So a lot of bloggers like that kind of thing, but I don't want to get the same products that 50 other people are getting. That's not of interest to me.
My rule for contests, I'm fine with limited tracking as long as it doesn't mess up the code on my page or cause problems cross-browser, because sometimes the code isn't clean when you get things like that, so I'm more apt to accept it from a company like Intel than from somebody who's doing a small buy with a more mom and pop kind of situation. But my contest rule personally is that I don't give away anything that's under $200 in value, and I usually don't do it unless it's part of a larger campaign as sort of like a supplemental. So if a product is, say, I think I had a small media player once that was like $40. It was a early MP3 player. And so they just gave me some cash to formulate sort of a gift around it. So I included it as part of a DOP kit that was stocked with all the things that I take when I travel, which I find to be a lot more successful because, like you said, the mom-to-mom recommendations, like here's some stuff I actually use provided by this awesome sponsor. So we're throwing one of those in there too, of course, kind of thing. But I'm not really into giving away something that somebody could afford to just go buy. It needs to feel like
you know what I want to add? I think this is really important. I know this is a very metric happy room because that's the world you work in and it makes sense. I think that advertisers, marketers, and media folks have to start wearing a new media hat when you look at blogs. It's not about like reach and frequency anymore, or it's not just about that. It's about influence, and there's a value in niche blogs. And we kind of joke sometimes when people say to us, like, what are your uniques? I go, you want to know about my uniques? Well, the producers of the Today Show, the editors of Real Simple, yes. Katie Couric, 80 million celebrities. So we're never going to have the traffic of like a baby center or something, but we have an awesome audience. And we write stuff up.
And they're deeply engaged as
and
well.
They're very engaged.
They're activatable.
Yeah, they buy stuff, or it's like a lot of editors and other mainstream media and influencers. Mm-hmm. So we can write something up, and the next day, the person's like, oh my God, you wrote up my onesies from Etsy, and then the Today Show called me the next day. Yeah. So I think that people have to start learning a new way to talk to their clients about metrics on blogs, because I don't think it'll ever just be about conversions or just about clicks or numbers.
And also that it's sort of an interesting situation where your readership sort of, in my opinion, if somebody comes to me and says they've read my site for years, I usually assume that they're the type of person I would be friends with. Like I consider my readers friends. So you're talking about the difference between just putting up a billboard in front of 10,000 people or whatever, or being like coming to a party where everybody there likes one another and it has similar interests, and putting a product in front of them. It's a completely different experience being invited to a high-level cocktail party versus putting up a billboard.
That's a terrific point to close on. Thank you so much, ladies. This was fantastic.